good, thank you. Thank you all for coming for tonight's meeting for the Wareham Zoning Board of Appeal. It is Wednesday, June 11, 2025, and it is 6:30 p.m. And we are at room 520 at the Multi-Service Center, Wareham, Mass. 02571. Also, we on Zoom. Passcode is 908796. Whoever's watching. I want to call the meeting to order. I make a roll call. My far right, Mr. Troy Larson, Ms. Veronica Debonese, our clerk, Mr. Jim Akibachi, my left, our member, Mr. Richard Semple, and myself, the chair, Nazi Al-Khalasi. We're gonna start with the minutes of
The minutes have not been,
5/28/25.
have not been fully typed yet, so we're gonna table them until the next meeting.
All right, can we get a motion to table that until next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Rich, all in favor, say aye.
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 Richard?
Aye.
And myself, Nazi, aye. So we're gonna move until June 25. All right, we'll move to continued public hearing, 425 RPB LLC comprehensive permit for Rosebrook Way.
Anybody here from Rosebrook? Oh, there you go, here he comes. Text message, did you see it via email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, very well, Councilor, sir. Name and address for the record.
Paul Matos with Allen and Major Associates. We're the civil engineer and land surveyors for the project.
Councilor.
And Mr. Chair, Paul Haverty, Blattman Bobrowski, Haverty and Silverstein out of Concord, Massachusetts, representing the applicant.
Are you guys ready here?
Sorry, just trying to get,
Just give him a minute. Just give him a minute.
I can look with
That's all right.
Troy, I just thought maybe
Okay. Yeah,
there's
she had
probably
your,
one.
she had your folder, but when you, I don't know if she took it with her or what. Go ahead, Nazir, I'm
All right,
sorry.
very well. Public hearing's still open, so let's see where we left it last time.
All right, yeah, last time we were here, we asked for a continuance because we were waiting for our peer review comments to come in.
Yeah.
And then since then, Green Seal has finalized their peer review. They've signed off on the plans. We submitted a revised set of plans accommodating any changes to the plans that were requested in that peer review.
Was there any,
Major
you guys
changes?
met- yeah, any
No,
changes?
no major changes. Everything stayed the same. Parking stayed the same. Number of units stayed the same. The only thing that changed was some clarifications and a couple of notes that we added here and there to satisfy the peer review comments. Nothing major.
Josh, is Green Seal on board and everything's good?
Maybe online?
Their letter indicates that they are. I did ask them to attend tonight's meeting. I just don't see him in the Zoom as of
Yeah,
right
but
now.
did you hear from them that
Oh.
everything is fine?
My bad. He's in attendance.
Oh.
Why don't you
Oh, okay, sorry.
come on up?
Yeah.
Just grab a chair. Sorry, sir, because we never met you before. Thank you.
Hi, Stuart Clark with Green Seal Environmental.
Okay, so did you guys sorted out your differences?
Yeah, I looked at the plan set. From an engineering point of view, it was a very solid effort. There was just some little Scrivener errors and some cleanup. I had a couple questions relative to the solid waste handling inside the building, but they were adequately addressed. Also had a couple questions relative to tapping sleeves and stuff like that, some of the mechanicals of it. But all those issues have been addressed by the applicant.
What do you mean some mechanical?
Although, they just had a leader calling out for a connection to the water main. I was wondering if it was going to be a tapping sleeve and gate valve so they could hot tap the water, because we have the building next door that we need to keep charged the whole time. So I just wanted a little clarification on that.
Okay, very good. All right, so you guys, everything's fine and dandy?
Yes, it's a good set of plans.
All right, we'll start with the board for comments. Troy, Veronica.
Just trying to remember, was there a question about parking and there was going to be some parking taken away from the medical center or something?
No, they asked a waiver to 80%, was it 80?
There was a reduction in parking, and there was some area of shared parking, and then the third component was some compact vehicle parking that just didn't meet the geometry of a
The
standard
project
parking.
itself, how many parking has?
I would ask the applicant to telling me that. I think it was a reduction of a few.
There's 272 spaces total on the project. That's a 1.5 space per unit.
Yeah.
And then we also have 16 shared spaces with the medical office building. That's going to be some handicap space there and visitor parking that we could use.
How many one-bedroom you have,
Oh,
if you don't mind?
It's 150 units total, correct?
180.
180?
180, yes.
I'm only asking about the shared spaces because when I'm over at Rosebrook for appointments, it's become harder and harder to park right near there.
Yep.
It used to be when it was first opened, always spaces, very easy.
These are
but
new
it's
spaces,
not
right?
the case anymore.
These are new spaces, right?
No, they're existing spaces over there.
The nursing home's always empty. You could use that, they never have cars.
Yeah,
It's kind of a walk.
that's more for the assisted living places, more for visitor parking that come visit the people that are in the units and stuff like that, because typically the people in the units
No
aren't able
one's
to drive.
visiting.
Yeah.
Would you
All right,
remind me, what's the demographic for this? It's just 1 and 2 bedroom?
No,
1, 2, and there's 3s. There's a mixture of everything.
So how many
So there's no
one-bedroom?
age restrictions or anything? It's,
No age
it's not-
restriction, no.
Okay.
So how many bedroom we got? One.
Just bear with me, so I can pull up the architectural plans.
I thought, my memory is it's heavily ones, secondary twos, and just a few threes.
So the state subsidy program requires a minimum of 10% three-bedroom units, so that's what we're providing is 10%.
So, okay, so you have 18
So
of them.
18 of them are three-bedroom. The rest are twos and ones.
Correct.
And it's weighted on the ones over the twos, if I remember correctly. We went over all this.
Yeah, I know, but just like to know.
No, I
So
get it.
there's a total of 121 one-bedrooms, 41 two-bedrooms, 18 three-bedrooms between the two buildings.
80, 41, 82.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at the map. Does the parking connect to the assisted living space? Kind of looks like it does on this front page, but,
Well, it's kind of, can we shut the lights off or something? It's kind of glare here and stuff.
So you need 298 spaces, you're providing 272.
Yes. But that does not include the 16 shared spaces that are on the thing.
That's not including that. yeah.
Right. So access off of Rosebrook is here, that you come off the main entrance into here, and then there's a cutoff into the medical building here, and then there's also access to the medical building here in the parking lot and the loading for the medical building. And then this drive access here is for the shared access between us and All-American Assisted Living on this side. And then there's existing easements, reciprocal easements between AD Makepeace and All-American Assisted Living, and also the South Coast Medical Building. So there's easements in place already.
So what they require to have 298 spaces, they have 272 and shared 16. That gives them 288.
so is it possible to share with the assisted living?
No, but it's on previous projects, because they never have full occupancy, we give like a break, like a waiver, like we did on Head of the Bay Road. We give like 78% instead of 100%. So we waived about 10-15% parking spaces, because it's never always
They're only,
empty.
what, 10 spaces shy?
They only, no, they're only 10 spaces, yeah.
Oh, okay, so now and I remember we were talking about a bus stop, right?
Yeah, there's a bus stop right here in the back. Oh, right there.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, Jimmy? You got Richard?
Just wondering, I think we were looking to see if you were gonna install some solar panels or anything like that, and I don't know how far you got with it, but
Yeah,
are you gonna?
our architect and the owner, they reviewed it and stuff. The roof is capable of taking solar panels. At this time, we're not proposing any, but something that we could look into as the project advances and construction starts and stuff, they may consider it, but right now, it's not being proposed as of today. But the roof will be designed to accommodate if necessary.
Just with all that you do, the company Makepeace puts out there, you just think they would try to be a stellar role model and have a lot of solar put on their buildings, but I guess that's not what we're gonna do, so.
All these parking would be nice to solar all the parking.
We've already talked it over, but it sounds like they're just gonna say that the building is capable of holding solar panels, so.
Yeah.
The one that we talked about, solar panels, was the one up the street at West Wareham. We had,
I think we talked
but you
about,
brought it up on this
they had plenty of room to put them on this and everything else, so I think.
Yeah.
parking lot and roof.
Remind me, the lights have solar, are all these lights that are on the perimeter solar powered?
No, they're just regular lights that are connected to a circuit panel in the building. So they're LED lights, dark sky compliant.
Because again, it's gonna be a draw on the grid, but hey, guess we'll live with it.
It'd be good to check into parking solar eventually. It'd be you guys gotta, I mean, as a developer, get a huge break if they do that, like tax break. But, I mean,
It's not in their backyard, I mean, they'll do it anyway, but not.
no, like above the parking, I'm saying.
I know, but like I said, they should be a role model and put themselves out there and show that they're aggressive and they're doing what they wanna do, but.
No, I agree with you, and once one company does it and people see it, they're gonna say, gee, that's, you know.
And it would help us all out in the long run, you know? Again, this ambitious to put a bunch of houses in and strap the town with a lot of grief in some places, so it'd be nice if we just could, again, be a role model of some sort. Really.
Is it feasible? Yeah, is it feasible feasible
Get to
to
the
add,
public, ma'am.
like financially feasible to keep that, invest more money in there, Counselor?
We would have to take a look at that. I know that there are incentive programs for providing solar, so it might be financially feasible, and that's something that we will keep an open mind, about as
Did
we
throw
move
your
forward.
budget out, that's what I'm saying.
But it's too early at this stage to commit. Once we get to the final plan stage, which happens after the board issues a permit, then we've got to submit final design plans. That would be the point in which we would have to make the determination whether to include the solar or not.
But if I heard correctly, your plans providing for the ability to add it on the roof at minimum.
Correct, the roof,
So that means conduits are gonna go up onto the roof so that lines could be pulled if they,
I'm not sure if the conduits are going to be pulled. The roof is going to be structurally designed to
Okay.
accommodate solar panels in the future. But I'm not sure if conduits will be run and stuff. That's be something that the
Well, the
MEPs will have to
You're gonna
decide.
be pulling permit with the 10th edition, it's coming out in July, so you're gonna have to comply with these stuff anyway, with the 10th edition. But I don't know if 40B, that 10th edition could be enforced on you. The 10th edition will require solar
Is that
building code,
the state building code, and it's not a local opt-in? It's going to
That's
be
the state
applicable
building.
throughout?
10th edition, yeah.
I don't see any likelihood of us pulling a building permit before
Yeah.
that occurs, so we would have to do it one way or the
Yeah,
other.
so you
then.
must have, it's
But
gonna, it might
again,
come
that-
up with the building
So,
code.
so that, we will be required, when we submit the final plans with the final design details, to show plans that comply with the state building code. If that's a requirement at that time, then those plans will show
Yeah,
it.
it's gonna be. Anyway, ma'am,
Could we turn this off so we can hear better?
yeah, go ahead if you wanna handle the heat. We shut ours off too, so. All right, going back this, Richard, what do you think? With the building code's gonna require them eventually, but
And
you can't force it.
the code requires it on the roof, it doesn't require it in the parking lot, is that correct?
Certain square footage. But I don't know if
Okay.
you could enforce building code on 40B, that's the thing.
Okay.
I don't know how it works.
Well, State Building Code is a state law. You can't get waivers
Right,
from
but-
that under Chapter 40B.
That's correct. but
Every
the-
40B project has to comply with State Building Code.
Correct, but the HERDS rating, I don't know if you have to comply with all these things or not. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the 10th edition.
And I know there is a way to obtain relief from the State Building Code by going to the State Building Code Appeals Board.
Yeah.
So again, that's an option that
No,
might be
we know
pursued as well.
you don't get relief from the building code, but I think with the HERDS rating, you might be able to, but it probably works on your favor doing that. I would, I mean, it'd be a huge rebate, huge. You probably get 10 grand a unit. Talking of almost $1.8 million in rebates if you do that,
I mean, like $1.7 million.
yeah? But yeah, 1.8 million, yeah.
1.8 million.
Because I'm doing small project, you get like 10 grand a unit. But anyway, that being said, do you want to add something, sir?
No, I agree with these gentlemen that state building code doesn't get trumped by the 40B process, and they will have to comply with it. But solar-ready roofs are the standard now, everybody has to do them. So to have the roof solar-ready is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Any more questions for the board? Anybody in the public? Richard, you wanted to add something?
No.
All right, well,
The engineer says they got a good plan.
everybody given the
Make a
blessing?
motion, we close the public portion of this hearing.
Okay, we have a motion to close our discussion.
So, Mr.
Yes.
Chair?
Yeah.
If I could recommend, I think it'd be better for you to leave it open. What I'm going to offer to do is to draft a decision for the board.
And look
Then
at
you
it.
I can submit it, you guys can review it, and if you keep the hearing open, you can discuss it in public
Okay,
with
even
us.
better.
Yeah, I don't want to
We
paint
can
you
still
into a
keep,
corner.
we can still shut the public,
No, it's okay, let's leave it open, and
I just
maybe
don't
you
want
go...
to paint you in a corner.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't you go to your client and discuss the solar with them
Sure,
in these 2
yep.
weeks? How's
Okay.
that? Does that sounds good?
Then I move to continue.
All right, we have a motion. Motion to continue till the 25th. I have second by Richard. All in favor, say aye. Troy? Aye. Veronica?
Aye.
Jimmy?
All right.
Richard?
Aye.
Myself, Nazir, aye.
So
We'll
that's
see
the
you
June
then.
25th?
June 25th. Yeah, I strongly recommend you discuss it, maybe over the parking lot and stuff.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Thank
You
you.
guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 1925, Mr. Gomes, 2786 Cranberry Highway.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Public hearing still open. I need names and addresses, please.
Attorney Jillian Morton, 184 Main Street.
Aaron Gomes, 2783 Cranberry Highway.
Good evening, Bob Bertolo from JC Engineering.
Very well. So where'd we leave it, Counselor, last time?
Absolutely. Last time we left it that we kind of presented everything. Obviously, we have Brad here today, so I want him, engineer-wise, to give you some info on things and kind of give him the floor and then see how we can move forward to either get it appealed or make it so he's able to have his livelihood and something that works within the zoning. So Brad, do you want to,
I did my own research on
Yeah.
it. Like I said, it's a grandfather lot. It was for residential only. I did research, it's not grandfather for commercial.
right, small
Because
lot.
previously, 15 years ago, somebody applied for a 2-unit, like a hair salon and a insurance agent, small, 800 square feet a piece, and they were denied for frontage and footage. So it's a grandfather for a residential. The board last time showed leniency to grant the commercial, but you have to eliminate the house. I mean, you could argue all you want with them, with the board, to see if they want to grant both. But I saw something online about the commissioner that is making problems, but I don't think it's fair for the commissioner because he's only doing his job. That's his job. His job to find flaws and bring it to our attention. He's our eyes and our guidance. So if he does his job right, we cannot blame him. saying he's not a good guy. So I just want to put it on the record that the gentleman is doing his job, and he's doing a good job. If some people don't like it, you can't badmouth him. I mean, you could do what you want, but it's not right. You could say whatever you want, but I'm not referring to you, Councilor, of course, but that being said, what are you proposing to do, Mr. Botello?
Well, again, Brad Bertol with JC Engineering. Obviously, Mr. Gomes would like to maintain the uses that he's been currently utilizing this property for. Again, just to remind the board, we're in the strip commercial zoning district. Residential is allowed by right.
Right.
A bunch of commercial uses are allowed by right. What the use is being used as seems to be classified as some type of storage use or contractor use. Contractor not being defined in the bylaws, so we understand that's an automatic no, it's not allowed. We've had very similar projects approved by this board recently, even on Depot Street. Very similar situation, non-conforming lot, larger lot, met area size of the lot, lacked frontage, had an existing residential house on it. The property owner wanted to put up a storage building, or multiple bays for his business. Contractor yard, keeps his storage, his equipment in the building. That is a use that's allowed. It would actually be two primary uses on the property, which is allowed in the zoning district by special permit. Same thing with multiple primary structures are allowed by special permit. When we originally did the plan for this, Mr. Gomes wanted to build the house and have his garage for his personal property, his equipment, and it was under kind of, hey, you can have single family by right. It is a non-conforming grandfather lot. 1 and 2 family uses, I believe, are protected on those. He had some type of garage or temporary structure that was in the back of the property at the time. So our site plan did show existing garage in the back, proposed garage kind of in the center. I think it was 60 by 60, and then obviously the house in the front. So you're allowed to have accessory structure on a residential use property. Now, it appears that the building commissioner is treating this more as commercial use or storage, so I could understand the need to look at possibly going that route and trying to request I guess, a variance on the use and a variance due to lack of adequate frontage, adequate area to...
But you said that it's allowed by right, by special permit, so why you want the variance?
Well,
If
the
it's
variance is the storage aspect of it is, I believe the lot is undersized.
Right.
So you don't have the capability of putting a commercial use on that because the lot's undersized.
Correct.
So you need a variance because the lot is undersized. The use itself, I don't believe storage is an allowed use in the
Storage
commercial.
is not allowed in Wareham, period.
Yeah, so it's not a good definition of storage. It's not a storage facility like you see some of these self-storage facilities.
Right.
It is just a garage that has his personal property in it that he stores in it. It's not a storage facility, but it's how the building commission has been treating the definition of storage. So that is the reason why I believe a variance would be necessary for the current use that he's doing. Ultimately, Mr. Gomes wants to get the building permit for his house so he can finish that off, and then at the same time, apply for or get permits for any existing structures or any replacement structures that take place, the accessory structures being these garage units, which are kind of temporary in nature. He's had it at multiple properties. They take apart and they put it back together, and so that's kind of our route that I thought that...
And if that happened, you're willing to go for site plan?
Well, I don't believe site plan review is necessary because site plan review is all dependent on the amount of required parking spaces per Article 9.
Also on the impact of the project. It doesn't have to be 10 parking spaces to trigger site plan.
Well, site plan review is triggered by 4 different things under the current bylaw. 1, any new development or change of use other than 1 or 2 family, which would require 10 or more under the parking schedule of Article 9. Single-family house requires the 2. This storage facility is really not defined, so it's not a service garage, which was quoted at the last meeting. It doesn't need 5 parking spaces per bay. It's not a Midas where your vehicles are coming in from outside customers. This is his personal garage, personal storage, and it's not a motor vehicle service
But this
building.
garage is a temporary building. That's only allowed 6 months by special permit.
That's why I said
It's gotta be
we got to
replaced
get a
by
building permit for the current structure. There may be modifications necessary to make it a permanent structure, or that structure is removed and a permanent structure is proposed in its place. That's ultimately, I believe, a permit is needed for the structure that's there today.
All right, and if we...
And if that existing structure can be permitted with any potential structural modifications, if necessary, or like a permanent, full foundation and whatever is necessary under the
Okay, but
building
due to
code.
the use of a lot of equipment there, there's too many equipment, too many trucks. The parking lot needs to be addressed. That's why site plan, it should come into play for drainage, for water oil separator. The garage has to be addressed. I mean, if you're gonna rebuild it and make concrete floor, do it right. I mean, who knows what goes on inside that. I'm not saying the gentleman does anything wrong, but
Yeah.
who knows what he does inside that.
That, again, if it's a commercial use garage or larger than a residential, which I believe is at 6 spaces within a garage, you're into the commercial and you are providing like oil gas traps or a holding tank for the floor drains. And that's all usually addressed at the building permit stage and on the site plan provided at the time the building permit is applied for. But again, site plan review is all relative to the amount of required parking spaces that is required under Article 9. And that's
I don't believe that. It's on the discretion of the commissioner. If he thinks they need that.
then he can make that determination when a building permit is applied for, but
He made that determination in his notice of violation.
nothing
Then
to
it
do with
could-
parking, nothing to do with
Oh, I
parking.
didn't say parking. To read, the project could potentially require a site plan review. So he's telegraphing to you what he's gonna require.
Yeah, potentially is depending on what's being proposed and how many parking spaces are required under the zoning bylaw, so. But ultimately, the first thing is the use is an issue, and then he files for a building permit, and then if he's saying that the building, the use requires X amount of spaces and exceeds the 9, then he would probably say, hey, deny, file for site plan review for that, but
Well, it's gonna come back. We all know this, but
Yep.
let me ask the board, see what they think. Richard, what do you think?
I just trying to remember, was there going to be a contingency that you were going to be taking these buildings down by the time your house was done, or was everything staying? I couldn't remember.
Well, ultimately, I want an accessory building, a garage, whether it's the one that's there now and he allows me to pull a permit for it and I keep that one, or that one gets torn down and I put up a brand-new garage. I mean, I can't afford to put up a brand-new garage right now. I'm happy with this temporary structure. Apparently, the commission is not happy, and then the last time the board recommends, okay, I already moved all my plows. I already found a new spot for them. I don't know.
No, that's what I'm asking. I mean, just trying to remember, were you going to clean the lot up, get it,
Yeah, I've cleaned the lot up so much in the last month since I've been coming through this. In the last 2 weeks, like I said, all the plows are off the property. I have a couple trucks over there right now. I'm allowed 2 commercial trucks per a house anyways, no matter what. And then, I mean, I don't know. And this is all started, he's saying, people were complaining. All my neighbors are happy with my situation over there. They all enjoy it.
I think the facts are relative in this case. I mean, the letter is clear that he's had these structures. 2020, he got the building permit to do the single family. You know, I unfortunately, I didn't know about, you know, people saying things online and whatever, but the fact of the matter is, he was giving a building permit to do this, and now we're in this pickle.
To do the
To do the
house.
single family.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
no
the new
question
commissioner
asked.
comes in, so we have to look at those facts. We can't just in a bubble say, this is the bylaw, you know?
Nobody's denying the building permit. We agree that he's entitled of it.
No, it's been stopped because we
Well,
have a
apparently
notice of
because
violation, so he hasn't been able to try to finish it. So,
Correct. But
you know,
there
we're just
is-
trying to find a solution that,
Right, but like Mr. Gomes said about he's happy with the building, the commissioner don't like it. It's not what the law, the bylaw don't like it, not the commissioner. The bylaw says the carport can be there with 6 months with a special permit. This is the bylaw, not the commissioner's idea. He doesn't just go pull it out of his head, say, oh, I don't like it. He don't just do that.
Ultimately, it'd be nice to have a building permit applied for the same time that the current the house permit is reinstated. You just have, he's going to have multiple building permit applications, so he'll have to make any structural modifications if necessary, or whatever the building department or the commissioner needs to turn that existing carport
right.
into a permanent structure.
I'm listening to everybody, and I don't believe the building permit for the residents has been rescinded. I believe what's happening, and the reason that there's a notice of violation, I believe that when the commissioner responded to somebody calling on the phone and giving them a tip, you know, maybe one of the people looking at Mr. Gomes and smiling at his face made a phone call. It happened. The commissioner didn't just say, I think I'll go to this address and snoop around. Somebody stirred the pot. Who, we don't know. That's moot. The commissioner has said because there is an existing violation, when he arrived at the site, he saw a structure, and then if you look behind it, I believe there's two more. I believe there's a total of 3 structures on the property, aside from the permitted single-family residence. That's the notice of violation. When there's a violation on a property, inspectional services cease until the violation is cured. That's where you are.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a violation, the violation, he says, until we cure this violation, and you either go to the zoning board and get a variance for a contractor's yard, and he puts it right in his letter, in his remedy, which may put you subject to a site plan review, or tear the building down. If the buildings disappear, then the commissioner's got no violation to stop and say to the plumbing or the wiring or any other, he's in compliance. Go inspect him. Go let him finish his project. So and I drove by and took a second and a third look. When you drive by there and you look in, even though it's temporary, it's a significant looking structure to the right and just adjust to the residence that's under construction. That would be a hard thing to deny. At the last meeting, Mr. Gomes said it's absolutely his intention or his willingness to take the 2 temporary greenhouse structures behind that significant structure down, and that they would go upon completion of the house. He's using them to work out of. But what you have is a structure that looks permanent that has no permits. That's the real violation. That's the elephant in the room.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we understand that. It's just, if we can't apply for those permits, because then that's apply for a permit to have those structures or modifications, because it now triggers the use, and you need to.
you need this board to, if this board issues a variance for a contractor's yard, which is what the inspector is looking for, with the condition that the two buildings behind are torn down before, during, or after the completion of the residence, and there'll probably be a clock put on when the residents, because they can't just stay there for the next 10 years with the world's slowest contractor. The building, the significant structure that's there is still in violation. So then you'd need to go and say, I need a retroactive permit for that building because they gave me a variance. But a variance for a contractor's yard isn't a green light to a building permit to a building or a structure that's already up. The commissioner may just make the determination that he doesn't want to inspect a build that it's been alleged to be a temporary structure. So he may just say, take all three down and give me an engineered design for your 60 by 60 building that you're asking for, and we'll see if it complies. That may, but in any case, he's already telegraphed, I can read this letter, I know the guy. If we grant you a variance for a contractor's yard, you're gonna be facing a site plan review.
I recommend clean out the yard, get a building permit to put a garage for his resident. Clean up the yard, put a real garage, and finish your house. And whatever, fence your yard, whatever you have to do, but clean it up and stop, because the commission is not gonna grant that permit unless this place is clean and that temporary carport removed. And you wanna, I know it's expensive to build a garage, but you're gonna have to do it right. Let me ask the board, what do you think, Troy?
I hate to, well, I agree with you. I think that the permitting is probably the best route to go for a garage and get rid of the other buildings. But, I mean, he's storing the building equipment for the building that he's building in those garages. So where did that go?
What do you mean building equipment?
Well, the supplies that he's using to build the house are in the garage, the temporary garage.
I think the building department's worried about the use. Yes, there's unpermitted structures there that need to get corrected. But we can't apply for a building permit because that's now multiple primary uses that are being proposed that would need permission from this board. He can go pull a permit tomorrow to rebuild or structurally improve those temporary structures. He's going to deny it because he's going to say, hey, this is a contractor use. You take the structures down, it's still contractor use. He still has his equipment there. So whether the structure's there or not, I believe Mr. Gomes is looking for a variance to allow him to still have that use at the property. Obviously, the structures are hiding and enclosing equipment instead of being visible from the street. Fortunately, it does have a number of fences around the property to help with sight lines.
You make it residential. Last time you testified, it's a hobby. Keep it as a hobby.
Yeah, but then he's going to see a Gomes Enterprise truck and tell him, get it off the property. I think he's trying to maintain his use of the property with his construction vehicles that he uses for his business, because obviously you need a place to store them at the end of the day. So I don't think he'll be able to do that with a residential garage. It's the use of the property that is an issue. It's not whether there's a garage there or not. Ultimately, he wants a garage, and
I
it's
know
either.
what you're saying, but 15 years ago, those people walked away and applied and came for a variance, and they were denied very simple commercial property.
But that was a different use that was being proposed on that property, so.
Yeah, an insurance agency and a hair salon. That's
But
way
it's-
less impact, and they were willing to do site plan and everything. Anyway, Ms. Veronica, what do you think?
Well, the last time that you were here, Mr. Gomes, I was trying to get you to choose either residential or commercial. I feel like it's a small lot, and that's why I was saying to you, well, you know, your residence isn't done, maybe it can turn into some kind of office building, and you could use it strictly as commercial and have your stuff there. I know that's not what you want to do, because...
I'm sorry. you say, all right, it's not done, but it's already, the house is framed, the bathrooms are roughed out, the rough plumbing's already been inspected, the electrical got started, he was waiting, about to pull his permit to get his rough done, so there is kind of no walking away from it being a residential house. If it says, if you guys say, okay, I got to take down the back garages, which I have materials in, for everything when this house is done, if I got to take down that back garage and pull a permit for the front garage, then that's what I have to do. But, I mean, if you're telling me I'm allowed to have a garage as an accessory building, what does it matter that this garage is there now and I go and pull a permit for it now or later, or whether my new garage that I propose in the future is made out of plastic or made out of metal or what? I mean, I just don't get it.
Well, I think that
Well, as far as allowed, a garage may be allowed, but that doesn't mean the size and the location of the garage.
exactly,
is
because
allowed.
in the use,
There's FAR, there's floor area ratio, and there's lot coverage to be considered. So we don't know if you're in compliance with that. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, that's okay.
I understand that.
It's about the use. You have the garage, which you want to use for your business. You said that, and your equipment, it's obvious that it's for a commercial use of your commercial equipment. And that's why you want to oversize. You're saying, well, it's a hobby. Well, then keep it as a hobby, use the front as a residence. I just think that I'm not willing to give a mixed use. It's not by right a mixed use, and there's no hardship here on the lot. It's an undersized lot at that, and it's grandfathered in, which is why you've been allowed to put a residence on there in the first place. But to ask for both, I think a residence and a commercial use it's a lot for this little spot right here. I think you have to choose. Is it gonna be your residence, or is it gonna be your commercial use?
That's wild. When my first building permit was my site, my plan was submitted to the town, it showed the garages on the property, in the spot, done by the engineers. The building department had no problem with it, approved it, showing these buildings, and showing a proposed building in the same
footprint and
spot.
location there?
Same footprint, same
Yeah,
everything.
you
on
proposed a
these.
real garage, not a carport.
No, but it showed the carport,
It showed existing conditions.
existing carport
Right.
on that spot, and could be replaced with a bigger building if I chose to. And they had no problem with it.
When was
And
that?
when I got my building permit in 2020, it showed everything on there. And now, and honestly, if I had enough money and my funding didn't fall through during COVID, and I got this project done before Mr. Turner came commissioner, there would be no such thing as any of this stuff even happening today. I call for a permit for an inspection, and then all of a sudden he says it comes to his attention that this, and this is wrong, and now $5,000 later, I'm sitting in front of the board trying to fight for something I've already had for a decade, and that everybody else has in town. I could have took 30 pictures riding around town showing mixed uses, temporary garages, people with everything in the back with way more stuff than me, and I didn't, but I could have. And everybody knows you can drive up and down Cranberry Highway and see all these businesses doing the same thing as me.
Right, but those businesses are allowed use, and they have, they
You
comply
tell,
with the
you're saying a
size.
construction company is not allowed. Constructions are not
It is
allowed use.
For
What does
instance,
McDuffie do? Is that a construction
yeah.
company?
Right, but McDuffie, the law is existing, the warehouse has been there, it's a legit building. The place has been construction since day one, it was built
Okay.
as a contract, so was the fence company.
So before I bought this place, they parked school buses and Gatra buses and vans. It was a parking lot. It was a storage for vehicles that got parked there. Lots of them. You can go back on Google and see all of that.
Yeah, but it doesn't
So
mean
nothing
it's
has
legal.
changed. I park trucks, they park Gatra vans. What,
Doesn't mean it's legal. That's the thing. I mean, we'll say yes, it's gonna come back to us, I'm telling you right now. It's not gonna go fly. I'm trying to save money and time for everybody. But I still suggest clean it up, finish your house, take the carport, apply for a real garage, and put your fence and put your hobby toys in the back. I still think that's the way to go. And I have no problem overturning decision to finish your house if you do that.
Well, I've cleaned the property up already, so.
What's that?
I've already cleaned the property up.
Yeah, but the issue is the carport. The carport, it's only allowed 6 months. That's the problem.
In the garage, I just want to tell you that what year was it, the garage? Remember, the size of the accessory buildings changed between, you pulled this permit out in 2020.
Correct.
There was a change to the size that you can by right do.
That I don't believe is true. I don't believe that is true. There's nothing in the bylaws that state that.
It's 900 square feet now.
That is, there is a statement in there. I've already gone through town clerks, town meeting, speak to the town planner. That statement was not in the warrant article, so that should not be in the zoning bylaws.
So it's not 900 square feet.
It's not 900.
That's beside, that's fine.
I just give you.
Intent is there, is the point.
It
So-
doesn't, there is no size restriction for accessory structures. Don't base that statement that you read there that there's a restriction or an intent. There's no intent for size restriction. Zoning bylaws have to get approved by a town meeting. That statement was not on the warrant article. I've been through this. I just want to give you a heads up.
I know, let me give you time out. We going by what's in front of us.
Yep.
900 square feet. Well, it was applied properly. The legislative board brought it into the warrant properly. They put the article wrong, I don't know. We going by what this bylaw says. The bylaw says, right, 900 square feet.
Yeah, it's-
However, I'm gonna make your life easier, but if you, I don't have a problem granting you personally, I don't know about the board, I speak for me, a real garage the same size he has.
The garage that's there is only 1,140 square feet.
Right, okay, so
So
I
it's
don't.
not much bigger than the
Right,
900
so I don't
that
have a
is.
problem, unless,
Yes or not.
I don't have a problem granting a variance to make a garage bigger than 900 square feet. Unless you want to go and argue the bylaw, that's a different story.
That's not, I don't believe what, I think the issue is, Mr. Gomes has an issue with the use on the property is what we're looking at. That's the issue. I know that's what's in front of you. If the temporary structures have to go, so be it. If the building commissioner allows him to apply for building permits, if he can have that use, then he'll apply for the building permits and change or replace as necessary those existing structures and whatever's required under the building code or zoning code for those structures.
At the end of construction with this house, if it was necessary for me to take those structures down, I would, and apply for my new permit to put up a new garage. But I can't leave all my cabinets and everything that I have purchased for this house out in the rain. And I can't leave it in the house when I'm trying to work. How could you plaster a house, put up insulation and all that stuff with all your stuff stuffed inside the house? So if the board, was allowing me to keep these things up until construction was over, then we would pull our permits, take them down if they're not gonna give me permits for them, and put up a new building then, if that was the case.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I know you mentioned the 6 months for the storage container. It's, his intention, essentially, what he says, if he has to take it out, he will. I'm wondering if I know they've been there longer than the 6 months, but if there's a pathway to give him some more time to
All right, let me ask you something. Can we overturn the commission decision and let him have inspection?
Well,
I'm not intended to give a site, a mixed use without a site plan, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna grant, personally, you're not
But
gonna
if we
give it.
had, as far as a storage container for the construction, and if you guys want to stipulate it's the 6 months under the bylaw, you'd have 6 months to, stuff in that, cabinets, things that need to stay out of the rain. But he needs to be able to work on the property. So the permit would have to get opened up and not frozen. So you could overturn it and make those conditions, and then if he violates it.
You finish the house
he's-
and take the building down?
Could you do that in 6 months?
After you finish the house, take that carport down?
But there's 3 different buildings that are being discussed as, almost as one here. We gotta identify which buildings are staying up and which ones are coming down. There's a significant structure that you can see from the street, and then behind it, there's 2 little top sheds. Am I saying it right?
Yep, there's a 2-bay carports in the back, and there's a 1-bay tent in the front.
So,
Granted, it looks nice because I didn't want it to look like an eyesore from the road.
So that's 3A, that's 15 parking spaces.
So it looks nice, but they're all temporary. Those ones in the back.
Not service-based.
Ain't staying.
Service garage.
so Mr. Gomes has already said that the 2 in the back will go. He's
And if we
agreed to
could
them being gone.
Keep that
We
one
need to
for
stipulate
a
it.
certain amount of time, so you
What's in
finish.
front of us is an appeal to a notice of violation and a request for a use variance. I believe the appeal to the notice of violation is to avoid $350 per day for the violation. So somehow, if we can do something to act on the appeal to help him avoid a very punitive fine, that would be helpful to the guy. As far as the use variance, the board has to decide. If we grant him a use variance, we have, I would believe, we have full authority to say, we're granting you a use variance subject to a site plan review. Come on back, re-advertise that you're doing a site plan review, so that anybody that is in a butter and that may be
Gotta go to
aggrieved.
planning board, not to us.
Well, there you go, then
But
send it to
the
planning
building
board.
commissioner will make that determination when the building permit is applied for, because they could take down and get rid of all the garages, and we have a residential use with storage. Where is your 10 parking spaces required under that
But
Article 9?
I'm telling you,
So
take
it's,
it down and go finish your house, put a fence and keep your hobby there.
well,
I wouldn't be able to take it down until the house was done.
So
that's it.
for you to get your CO, your occupancy permit, the garage should be taken down. So you can do all your building until, forget the 6 months, forget about everything. I'm just trying to make it easier for the guy. Before he goes to get his CO, he has to have that down. He can use all the property to, keep it storage so he can
Right. Yeah,
complete
that
his
makes sense.
project.
That's a
And then-
good
And then
idea.
when he gets ready to go for a CO, then it needs to be cleaned up so the building inspector can walk in and do what he's got to do and be done with it.
And don't see any violation.
And no violation. Is that something
That
I
sounds
could,
good.
we can work with? Because I want you to finish your house. I want you to have what you want. It's all just a lot of bylaws, which everybody hates, and the time that it took you to do it, COVID, we've given plenty of people extensions and things because somebody up at the State House says we have to. Well, why can't the town give somebody extension for COVID because he ran into financial problems?
I think
mean,
Richard's idea is a good
I'd
idea.
like to help him.
So,
The idea is a good idea.
so I get to,
You go finish your house, but he won't give you occupancy until after you finish the house. He'll let you do inspections, all that. But you won't get occupancy permit until you clean up the place or put a fence, put your hobby behind the fence, but you gotta take down these carports.
You gotta eliminate the
These
violation.
carports. You gotta
Okay.
eliminate the carports.
but I'm allowed to keep my equipment there?
You're allowed to keep your hobby. And I'm not gonna give a variance for mixed use. I don't think the board's gonna. Without a site plan, we're not gonna.
We're not granting a use variance, we're overturning,
It's a decision so you
we're-
could get your
we're
inspection.
modifying the violation or the notice of.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta,
I'm just
I
trying
gotta,
to keep you from
that is a
having to
great
do
idea.
site-
I really like the board's
Trying to keep it from having
recommendation.
to spend more money on the thing to keep it going. We get this, let's find a common ground and let the man finish and let him move on with his life. And let
Okay.
the inspector do what he's got to do. I just trying to find a win-win here.
So it would be an overturn of the decision, or the appeal,
Of
the
the
notice of
violation.
violation? Okay. Would it be a stay of any, well, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
I'd just like to point out a few things that I think are important for the board to recognize. None of the temporary structures have a building permit. We don't know if
We know
those
that.
structures are safe, we don't know if they're anchored
We
correctly.
understand that, that's the whole idea. See,
Alright.
that's why we want them down, because temporary structures, you're supposed to get a permit, and you can only have them for construction or a container for construction. Those construction containers are only good for 6 months during construction. So they built wrong, who knows? It just, that's why they're temporary, but
Yep.
they're not. And the gentleman said when he finishes his house, he'll remove them.
And this is the zoning board of appeals, and this is what we're making a decision, so, I mean, whatever goes on over there is fine with him, but we're dealing this out, and I think we'll come to a pretty good reason, a solution, and that's what that's what I'm sticking with anyway.
He needs to go forward with his, I mean, he's at a stage where he needs inspections to do more work. Right now, he's got handcuffs, he can't work. You know, my father would say the guy doesn't know whether he wants to shit or go blind, but we can't say that in public meetings, it's too vulgar.
All right. That being said, is that a fair deal, Counselor? Anyone in public want to speak on this matter, in favor or against? I hear none. Board members, any ideas?
You want to keep the public portion open? You want to just make,
Close. We're gonna make a decision. There's no sense
So-
going
want to
back.
make a decision?
I
Okay.
have a question on, is there going to be a limit to how long this,
It's gonna be 6
Go on.
months, because that structure is good only for 6 months, so you need 6 months to finish that house.
can you do that?
Yeah.
Because that temporary, we're gonna start you from zero. That, we're gonna consider that temporary structure is built today or tomorrow. So you get 6 months to have that structure to finish your house.
Okay.
That make sense?
Give it his best shot.
6 months that he comes and says, I'd like to modify that structure to,
We'll have, no more, you can't
From today's
modify a
date.
temporary structure.
From today's date, or when the decision's stamped in?
What's that?
From today's date, 6 months? From the decision
the
date or
decision.
stamped in? From the decision?
Right.
Okay.
I'd say from the
The twen-
20 days after the
The appeal period,
So they'll give you another month.
yeah.
All right,
Motion to close the public portion.
I have a motion to close, Mr. Akabachi, I have a second. Second by Troy, all in favor, say aye. Troy? Aye. Veronica?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Now, what's the motion?
The motion is to somebody to put the words that everybody liked coming out of Richard's mouth.
All right, I'll make the motion. The motion is to overturn the decision of the violation stated by the commissioner under the conditions to follow. We'll overturn his decision, we'll let the gentleman finish his house. He's got 6 months after the appeal period is over, after the 20 days. After the 6 months, the temporary structures with the S, all temporary structure has to be removed before obtaining an occupancy permit, whichever comes first. So if you finish in 3 months, you gotta take the temporary structure in 3 months. If you finish in 6 months, so either way, whichever comes first. If you want the occupancy permit to go get a loan, so you gotta remove the structure. If you wanna wait the last minute, you could wait the last minute, but you will not get a CO without removing the structure and straighten out the yard and put a fence, at least to make it look halfway decent on the back, so nobody sees your hobby. I think this is fair for right now. On the future, I recommend if you're gonna go for mixed use or whatever, you come in with a site plan review, because I personally am not willing to grant a variance without a site plan review for that much activities. If you're a little hair salon, if you have a little insurance agency or a bookkeeping business, I understand, but not a hobby like that. So that being said, this is my motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Richard. All in favor?
A question before I vote.
Go ahead.
We're breaking this into 2 different votes, and this is simply on the appeal of the notice of violation. This is not...
Right, we're overturning the violation, but under these conditions I just stated.
Okay.
Okay? So seconded by Richard. Any discussion? I hear none. All in favor, say aye. Troy? Aye. Veronica?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
And myself, aye.
Do we
Good luck.
need, do we,
Go do
wait a
your
minute.
work.
They also asked for a variance. Do we want to make a motion on the variance?
No, we're not gonna,
You don't want to deny it? You don't
I
want
want
to,
nothing.
Well, it's going to trigger a site plan review, so
we're just going to let it,
let the man
let him
finish.
do it? Okay, I just wanted to be clear on it, that's all.
Are you good with that?
Yeah, because we don't want
Counselor,
a
I need-
denial for 2 years.
Why-
No action.
I want, no, hold on. I want from you to ask to withdraw the variance, the use
Okay.
variance of the committee. Can you ask us? Ask us to
Right now?
remove, withdraw the variance.
Can you
of-
please withdraw the variance request?
Okay, we have a motion, we have
So
a
moved.
request. Moved by Jimmy to
Second.
to retrieve the
You got
variance
where I
of
was
it.
going, yeah.
So all in favor, say aye. Troy?
Aye.
Veronica? Jimmy?
Aye.
And Richard?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Okay, very good. So you requested to remove the variance. Okay, very well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, board.
Thank you.
All right, 20-25, OSMR Wareham Solar LLC for 74 Maple Spring Road. Jimmy?
Well, I didn't think of that, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Was that enough?
That's what I asked that. Withdraw.
What do you need?
So if I remember this one, this is simply, what they're in front of us for is a variance. And they're gonna go to planning board if we give them the variance. If we don't,
Right.
then they have to appeal our decision.
Yes.
That's actually incorrect. The site plan is being done under your board. This application has
Oh,
a
yeah, that's
zoning
right.
freeze
We're doing the
from
site plan.
We got, but we
2019.
got it all.
You got it all, that's
That
correct.
applied prior.
Okay.
All right, name and address, please.
Good evening, Greg Sampson with Sullivan and Worcester, 1 Post Office Square, Boston, 02109.
You're a counselor, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, Eric Weinstein at New Leaf Energy, 55 Technology Drive in Lowell.
Sir?
Dean Smith, New Leaf Energy, 55 Technology Drive, Lowell.
All right, I'm just gonna ask whoever, except the attorney, just gotta stand up and get taken off. Please, if you don't mind, Jimmy?
I guess with your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, have a seat. All right, counselor, where did we leave it last time?
Thank you. Well, we were here 2 weeks ago. I was remote, apologize, couldn't be in person, but we had our introductory meeting with this board. There were a number of questions that came up. I think the board was aware that we submitted a rather robust package of material. And I know that you hadn't had an opportunity to go through everything at a time, but there were some questions that came up. And we want to take a couple weeks to provide some responses to those questions, and then to have an ability to talk through some of those responses this evening. So we did submit a letter a week ago that itemized a lot of the responses. What we did was we tried to focus on where some of those items were addressed in our original application. If it's okay with the board, I'd like to kind of hit some of the highlights of that response letter, because I think it is important. We did submit as much information as we normally felt was necessary. As the board recalls from the last meeting, we actually started this process with the planning board, who then, through the building inspector and town council, referred us to this board because of the bylaw interpretation. But as it turns out, we've already done a peer review process. They looked at all our stormwater management. We have a member of the peer review team here tonight. If questions come up on stormwater management, I don't know if he's here to address those, but I know that they did provide those comments already. So I just wanted to go through a couple of points on the letter. We feel that the application demonstrates an appropriately sized and designed solar renewable energy facility. It is a protected use under the Zoning Act. So there's Section 3 of the Zoning Act has requirements that solar uses and energy storage be treated with reasonable conditions that are relevant to health, safety, and welfare. We think that Because of these, and if you recall, we're here for both the site plan review, but also for some variances. The variances are largely immaterial. They were, again, we talked about them last time. They're internal lot lines, and we're asking for a waiver of the setbacks on those. That allows us to keep the footprint smaller instead of trying to spread it out. So I think it's almost completely logical to grant those variances.
Can I interrupt him? Let him finish. Okay. Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. We outlined why the project meets the standards for the variance. We also outlined why the project meets standards for a waiver, which is what can be granted under Section 3 of the Zoning Act. We believe it's proposed a number of conditions that are protective of public health, safety, and welfare. We talked about some issues that have come up regarding PFAS, contamination of the water supply. We have agreed previously in the materials that there won't be any PFAS. We provided information in our response letter about what the solar panel components look like and that there are no contaminants of concern. We provided a white paper that was prepared, that was actually submitted during the Concom hearing by a member of the public that talks about how the fact there are no PFAS or other contaminants of concern in these materials. We provided some information on the energy storage system. There are a number of energy storage systems. There are many in town already. They're not a high-risk situation, despite some of the things that have been said. There have been no incidents of major fires or incidents with energy storage in Massachusetts that we can find. The exceptions generally have been e-bikes, cell phones, a lot of these things that aren't regulated by the fire code the way energy storage systems are. Over time, there's been more and more energy storage systems proposed and built, and there's been fewer and fewer incidents on a project-by-project basis. We did provide information on what would happen if there was an incident at the storage facility. These are units that come in double-walled steel containers. They're with their own fire suppressant systems that are inert materials. They're designed to detect and extinguish an event if something were to happen. There was a paper that we included from a New York State study done by the state that looked at some incidents of battery energy storage system fires. They found in 2 instances no water was used because that's the right approach to the fire department to take. In the instance where there was water use, they did a full investigation of drinking water wells and found no contaminants or any cause of concern. There were some comments about the clearing associated with this project. It's a 435-acre site. We have about 16 acres of clearing. It's on an agricultural site. It's constantly being worked. We know that the trees that are there today might not be there tomorrow because of the agricultural operations. They clear the trees and they use the sand on the bogs. So regardless of whether this project moves forward, it's not likely to make a major difference on tree clearing. We also note that even with the tree clearing, this project provides an enormous benefit from a greenhouse gas perspective. We provided a calculation in our materials. There have been a number of concerns of other materials that may be included in the project. We're not aware of anything else that's a contamination concern. We're happy, the building code regulates materials and methods of construction. That's not a zoning issue, but nonetheless, we're happy with a condition requiring us to demonstrate that there's no hazardous materials in the panels or in the project that could be a concern for the town. Again, we provided a detail of the energy storage container system, what that looks like. It's very, these are emerging technologies, I admit, but they are very well advanced. The fire code's being updated constantly to address any potential concerns with these systems. The state has a huge program to roll out energy storage because it's so necessary to offset peaker loads with the gas plants that burn dirtier fuels during the peak times. So storage is a key component to offset peaker plants. We provide information from the water department indicating that they did not see this project as being a concern. It was a detailed letter that explained why. We've had conversations with the fire department, your fire department, and I know it's not a town fire department, but it's a joint one. We've taken part in trainings with them. We've met with them on several occasions. They spend a lot of time on our facilities where there's energy storage now and where there's solar panels. They've been very involved, and they know what they're doing. I give them a lot of credit for being very aware of what the requirements are and how these things should be managed. And that pretty much sums up the summary of the letter. We're happy to answer any questions that have come up. We do appreciate the board's willingness to listen to us, and I appreciate that there's a lot of material there, but we think it's all necessary to prove that this is a good project, meets all the requirements of the town bylaws, and should be a permittable project from this board. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question. You guys using the bifacial panels?
Yes.
Not the all BSF cells, right? You're using the bifacial?
Bifacial is used on our projects, yes.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
I read in the letter that those, you don't know what kind of panels they are. They said that once we give them the okay to go ahead, they'll make the decision on what kind of panels go in during construction. So we're not gonna hear it here. I went through this. I spent 3 days going through this stuff in my spare time. And there's a lot of pork in here. They give you a reason for something, but then they say, oh, but there's no published results, because if I was putting up something bad and it was failing, I wouldn't want to bring any attention to it. I wouldn't publish anything. So I think there's a lot of gray areas in here. I also went down to the fire department, and I talked to one of the spokespersons, which was a chief. And he says the only thing that they were were instructed to do is if there's a fire, they're supposed to notify Eversource. But there's already a notification built into the cabinets. So Eversource is already going to be known. They will not put any of their personnel in any harm's way. All they're going to do is show up at the site and monitor the smoke. If the smoke blows in a direction, they will evacuate. That's all the fire department's doing. They're not putting water on, they're not doing anything. They're going to stand around and watch a fire.
To let it burn down?
Huh?
They want to let it burn down?
Yep. So when you hear that they've instructed and done with the fire department, it sounds good, but basically all it is
Just let it
is
burn.
people are gonna just show up, and as long as the smoke ain't going towards any person, any neighborhoods or anything like that, it's gonna burn. The wind shifts, then they got a whole different problem on their hand, then they have to evacuate people. So there's not a lot that goes on with this instructional information that they bring forward to the board. It's saying like they had a big meeting with it. It isn't like that. It's all it is that they show up and they watch it burn. And they just had one in New Bedford. So, you know, luckily nothing really major happened there. But secondly, and then the panels, you asked that question, they're gonna sit there and nod their head. But it also says in the letter that they won't decide on what kind of panels until construction is started. So, you know, going through this over and over. And then there's also a statement in there that I highlighted here, said, self-contained BESS will typically eliminate any leaching hazardous materials to the groundwater. However, from a safety standpoint, it brings an elevated risk to the fire that otherwise would not be present in the solar facility. So it could just, the solar facility, if it was just a raise, they would go ahead and everything would be fine. But then now that they bring in the batteries in, now there's a higher risk of some kind of problem going on. And again, I got upset when, over the Zoom. I apologize for my rant, but I'm very, very nervous about all the statements about, oh, the water runs south. Just to let you know, you don't have the map up. There's a wetland, which is a swamp, which is a reservoir, which if people don't know how bogs work, you have a reservoir, it's up here. Then you have another bog. Then you have another bog, and you have another bog, and you have another bog. All that water is used to go down through, and all that does is go east from that reservoir down and directly into the Agawam River. The Agawam River comes right up to the edge of that bog, and it goes right into a pumping station. When I heard 7,000 feet from water, you're in an active area where a tributary would just dump the water down and go right out into Agawam. Also, it could flow to the south and go into the Wareham River. The groundwater, they seem to be worried about our drinking water, but they're not worried about any of the tributaries, fish that are gonna come, migration that's gonna come up the rivers if they ruin that. It's just all new, and it states in here that it's only 3 years old and only been used, so there's not a lot of data that they can show us. So there's a lot of gray. When I go through, I got highlights everywhere stating, you know, they say, oh, there's good points, but at the same time, we don't really have any publicized bad points. Because again, nobody's gonna put their ambitious greenhouse, zero greenhouse gas project forward because, oh, we gotta do it. But nobody yet has cornered China or India. Why are we gonna clean up? How are we ever gonna clean up zero emissions around the world if you're not gonna have two countries that are more populated than us just ruining it? So I find, and also, nothing I feel in politics stays for 25 years. So an ambitious goal right now is throw it out, ruin it. I mean, all right, put it out, without thinking of the consequences. And I would not want some of those areas, in case nobody realizes, there's a reservoir up there that's been dug out. It is turquoise blue. The water is so clear. And if you go for a swim in it, you come out of it feeling like you just lost 10 years out of your life. It's absolutely amazing. And to have a battery field, if something bad happened and it went wrong, and it went really wrong, because again, nobody really knows there's accidents. And just like these things, we're not supposed to drink out of plastic anymore because it gives plastic microbial stuff and it's building up in people's brains. But this has always been good, but when does it not become good? And now we're finding out 20, 30 years down the road. I just want to be on the eye. I'm not against trying to get energy. It's cheap, even though you charge 3 times as much for the freest energy that we've ever made. It's just, it blows my mind that there's nobody in that understands that if you go so fast, it's going to be too late when it's too late. And I do not want that for our town. That's all. And that's a very sensitive area. There's water running in 2 different areas. There's groundwater. There's wells all around it. Find some place out in the middle of the Miles Standish or something, somewhere where they don't have to worry about any migration or anything. But it's just, I read through this and it just gets me more worked up because there's good points and there's, not so good points, but there's not enough paperwork on it. Because there hasn't been a catastrophe yet, and I don't want that catastrophe to be in that area. And that's why I got worked up about the batteries. We already tried this over at Charge Pond. There's a river that runs right out. I don't see it being built in there. Was there a reason? Did I bring up a good idea? I don't know. Do we have to put monitoring wells in? I don't know. But I just feel that area is not the best area to experiment with battery storage. And that's my feelings through this.
I appreciate your apology for last time, for the gentleman that was here. Okay, Troy, what do you think?
I'm kind of with Rich on this.
Veronica?
Yeah, that's the location with the water and for the points that Rich brought up. I kind of feel the same way.
Jimmy?
I have a question regarding the variance on the 2 properties. It's 2 different owners.
Correct.
So my concern is, once a variance is granted to 2 properties, the variance goes with the land, not with the applicant, as I've heard multiple times sitting on this board. So if we grant a variance to waive the buffer zone because it's 2 different owners, but it's 1 project, 5 years, 10 years, 2 weeks, at any point in the future, either of the 2 owners could say, I don't want to collect my rent on this anymore, I'm selling my part of the project. And they could break the lease, or they could sell their property with the lease. Or the solar company could say, you know what? We can make more money elsewhere because new technology says we can make more money elsewhere. But the two parcels have now got a variance for no buffer zone between them. So with that said, I tend to be reluctant to grant that variance. That's my only comment.
Mr. Chair, could I address that point?
You can.
Yeah, let me give my point of view, and then you can. I disagree with Mr. Akabachi. When it's two property, they're both in agreement. Besides the idea of a solar, it's only fair to grant a variance if they're both in agreement. However, it could be conditioned only for that solar project, not for housing or not for buildings or whatever. I'm okay with the variance personally. No, I don't speak for the board, between the properties. However, the setback variance, I'm not okay with it. So you're required 50 feet. I do not believe you have a hardship to get the 50-foot variance on the setbacks. We impose on everybody in town for the 50-foot. So especially for areas like that particular project, to give 50 feet, I'm against it. And between the properties, as a zoning view, I'm okay with it. But on the idea of a solar, I'm 100% with what Richard said. I think we have enough solar projects. Our community is loaded with water. Our community has a lot. You don't live here, you don't have, Richard grew in these streams and bogs and everything. I've been here 40 years, and I know it pretty much, not as good as Richard. He hunts it, he walks it, he swims it, everything. And
If you test the water, you'll get a sample of his DNA.
so, and I strongly believe that he knows what he's talking about. He's not overdoing it. He's not oversaying it. And I think we had, in the beginning, to answer you, when the solar came to this town, I was for it. And after, it started to taking up the land everywhere. I mean, it's taken great industrial land. It's taken a great residential land. And eventually, like my kids, there's no house lots in Wareham for sale. So for instance, the Ferring Hill project, there could have been 20 beautiful homes. They did solar, and it's gonna shine everywhere. It's gonna like reflect the sun everywhere, and it's detriment to that river that runs there. What's the name of that river, that Wentic? Wewianic, yeah. So it could have been houses. Right now, if you wanna buy a house in Wareham, you can't, or a lot. So that's besides the point. And we have on Toby Road also, they took a beautiful, nice industrial land that could provide hundreds of jobs and did solar. Fine, it's done, it's over. But the detriment on the sensitive location of that spot, it's really not good. It's a bad detriment. But again, for the variance, I don't think as a zoning issue in between the lots, it's acceptable, but not the setback. Go ahead.
I would say, with respect to the concern on the variance, I mean, again, that it can, in this case, I think it is, for one thing, it's a solar setback. So it wouldn't be applicable to a different use. So,
I guess it could be restricted.
yeah, so we would feel very comfortable if that was the language. And I am respectful of the board's opinions on the other thing. I'm disappointed that, there are a number of projects, and I understand Wareham has felt more than their share of these projects. I would say that most of them that have been installed have not been a burden on the town. Most of them do have energy storage. It's only recently that these have become an alarmist concern. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. I just think that it's one of those things that as people start to hear about things. In the paper that's attached to our letter was actually prepared by a water quality committee, not an applicant, when they did the research. So we're trying to be respectful and submit information that's even-keeled but backed up with data. So I do think, if the board's not going to grant the relief, we'll have to pursue our options. But I'd like to know if, for instance, there was no battery energy storage, is it a different project from the eyes of the board? That would be an instructive piece of information from us to know.
I personally think we have way too many solar projects in Wareham. We're way overloaded, too much. Not to mention, I mean, supposedly to reduce the price for energy, not that it matters if you want to save the environment, but our electric bill went up for supplying 50% on January 25. They raised the price, and supposedly we're supposed to get a share out of it, but that's besides the point. We're talking about either the passion for the environment, but that's the money part of it. It's irrelevant, but that's the icing on the cake.
I think there's merit to have it on the record that this board does not oppose solar, or at least I don't.
We grant many of them before.
And I personally can tell you, I'm still enamored with and in favor of solar over parking lots, on the roofs of commercial buildings, on the roofs of residential buildings, over hard surfaced areas that are already not green. It's my personal opinion that if solar were installed over parking lots and over the roofs of commercial buildings, it wouldn't be necessary to deforest or, I think it's a good business move. I think it's great. I go up Route 58 and I watch the project where they pulled the poles out of the bog and put steel poles in their place. And I think it's a clever use, but I think it's a business decision, not an environmental decision. Right now, it's economically sound. There's money to be made installing and selling solar, but the money that's being made isn't to the benefit of the people of Wareham. It's to the benefit of the people that build the solar project or the people that rent or lease the land. It's not, it's definitely got perceived environmental benefits, but it's got no financial fiscal benefit to any consumer that I've personally observed, unless the consumer owns the project. But I just want, as an applicant, I want you to know that I don't believe anybody on this board is anti-solar. I think we're just sensitive to the site.
May I
Yeah, go
address that? So Eric Weinstein, hearing that loud and clear, we of course totally support carport, parking canopy, rooftop solar. We do that as well. We actually attached as a report to our supplemental comments here, the technical potential for solar, which is put out by the state, which identified that 90% of the technical potential for solar in the state is coming from ground-mounted solar projects. And as many carport and rooftop projects as we can build, we need to offset more greenhouse emissions, and that has to come from ground-mounted solar as well. We think this is a really well-cited project as far as ground-mounted solar projects go. I heard some concerns for wetlands, rivers, aquifer. The project is, we pointed out, number 16, and what we submitted as follow-up comments were 500 feet from a Zone 2 wellhead, 2,500 feet from Zone 1. I know Mr. Semple pointed out the groundwater flows to the southeast towards the ocean. So we think this is a really well-cited project. Ground-mounted solar is something that is going to be part of the mix for decarbonizing the electrical grid.
All right, thank you. I want to move to the public. Who wants to speak first? Ma'am? Good set, either way, take a chair with the mic.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Faith Berry, and I live off of Maple Springs Road, and there are many of our neighbors that we spoke to, so it's not just me that has this opinion. I'm going to submit to the board 37 signatures from the neighbors in our community that are opposed to this project. Part of the reason that we're opposed to this project is that we feel that this type of project would be better suited. I'm for solar too. I just want that known. I'm not an anti-solar person, but this is not a good location for that. I agree with Mr. Semple because I looked at the U.S. Geological Survey maps of the aquifers and the water supply that moves through that area, and it does move back and forth. As Mr. Semple stated, the people that run the cranberry bogs push the water from the lake into the bogs to flood it, to harvest it, and then the water goes back into the lake. So it's not a static system there. There's a lot of movement there. Our other opinion of all of our neighbors is that over 60% of all these solar projects are located in Plymouth County. I think there's other areas in Massachusetts that can take up the load of having some of these solar projects at Wareham and other towns in Plymouth County like Carver. We've done our share already of these solar projects. I have a degree in environmental studies. I used to be a park ranger. My concern too is there's no environmental review being done at all, and I understand for agricultural purposes that you can cut trees, but the trees that are being cut aren't to benefit the cranberry bog. This is a different use. This is an industrial use. This is not an agricultural use. So I do have a problem with that because I looked at that law and I'm familiar with environmental laws. I'm also concerned there's a lot of birds that migrate through that area, swans, different species of ducks. There's an osprey nest out there. Those birds come and go. It's a violation of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act if we're doing, building and construction and tearing down trees during the migration season of these particular species. So I just want to thank you. We're concerned about the water and the chemicals that can potentially go into the water. And as they stated, they would not use panels that have PFAs, but they're not stating where they're buying the panels from. And also I have a hard time because I'm aware that a lot of these panels are produced overseas and their testing doesn't meet any US standards. And as far as the batteries, I used to work for NFPA. I don't see anything in any of these specs where this battery storage meets NFPA codes. So I have multiple concerns about this project, and I want to give this to the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next, who wants to speak? Thank you. Get in the folder.
Good evening. Annie Hayes, Farmers Lane. I've been studying.
Gotta be quiet, excuse me. Excuse me, in the back, the echo, we can't hear.
I've been, I live on the backside of Faring Hill. So because my land is contiguous, I've spent the last 4 years studying the documents from the manufacturers, the proponent, and the plans, and understanding has changed enormously in 4 years, because now there is the awareness, as Mr. Semple said, of microparticles. That was last summer, about the bottle of water, the plastic bottle that has 240,000 microparticles, because now they have instrumentation that can measure the particles. And then a few months back, the articles changed and they said that 90% of those microparticles were nanoparticles, which is a whole different level of scale. And I think I said last meeting that 3 nanoparticles of gold, 3 atoms of gold equals 1 size of a nanoparticle. So these are infinitesimally small, and they've been found in human carotid arteries and placentas. I think I also said those things. The research is horrifying. And just this year, just this week, as I was finishing up a document for planning, I learned that AI, which I think probably everybody saw, that people who are studying it don't know why it works. I mean, that's one of the quotes, the Axios article, National National Geographic had that article. So AI is now working with nano engineering to develop more of these materials and uses, and we don't even understand the word, most of us don't even understand the word nanotechnology. I mean, it's really complicated. They all act differently in different circumstances, and because they're so tiny, it's all surface, and so the surface is interacting with everything around it. It's not like there's a sort of core that doesn't. So I don't find any data that addresses these things. Maybe I'm missing something because I haven't read all the plans, but the part of this land was proposed, I don't know if we finished working on that a year ago or 2 years ago, but they talked about no PFAS because the panels were cadmium telluride. So that has issues of its own, having the chemical of cadmium, which is one of the 6 most toxic chemicals. I mean, they're supposedly the size of a hair, but we're talking about nanoparticles now, which is like an infinitesimal part of a hair. So there's the concern for me, especially about coatings on panels. Manufacturers of panels are putting coatings so that any material is more rapidly slides off the panel, because any obstruction like bird feces or raindrops that stain are going to obstruct the amount of energy that can be generated. Also, there's an anti-reflective coating, and that changes the surface reflectivity so that the light is more absorbed. It's anti-bouncing off. It's pro being absorbed, and that's for greater energy manufacturing as well. So I did ask Josh Faraday to ask the proponents, I don't remember when that was, but it was before the last meeting, if what coating they were using to keep the panels clean, or were they going to wash them by hand. We never hear about washing, but all of the manufacturers say you have to wash them, or you have to, they're trying to push the nano coatings, and they're trying to push coatings now that have the anti-reflective and the hydrophobic runoff combined, which is even more complicated. I have read a lot about how panel coatings can degrade. They have more and more research because they've been kind of testing these things in a humidity box or somewhere in a lab. And the field work of testing, the data of field work, is not there. And that's 25 years they propose these things will be good for. And so in 25 years, I said this last time, but the data is important. 1,330,000 hours. Just 2 weeks ago, there was a lightning storm that hit Faring Hill, and I have a photo of all the sparks that were there. The fellow who did the video, the report for the planning board on our last solar project, Milos Puchavsky from Worcester Polytechnic, that I forwarded to you. I think you got it. Did you get it? Okay.
You did.
I did. I asked Sonia to send it to everybody.
It's in the file.
Good, great. He talks about what Faith was talking about. He's an expert on this stuff. He's been teaching at Worcester Polytechnic for 25 years, I think, full professor, and he's been focusing more recently on the battery storage. He had very particular criteria from the state regs and how they interconnected with the town regulations, and that's for 2019 because we were also looking at that. So I had hoped that you would see that, and I also sent that to the captain at the fire department who's in charge of writing the permit that clears from the fire department. I asked him if he'd like to see it. He said he would very much like to see it. I haven't had a chance to get back to him to see if he would mind talking to me or to you or to planning, but that kind of conjunction of information I think is extremely important as these advances happen so rapidly. And, you know, it used to be you just sort of check it off. Oh, it's the wonder, solar technology. But the competition is very severe. As someone was saying, 80% of panels are manufactured in China. They're being burdened by the tariffs. Some companies are going bankrupt. The containers for the batteries are most affected by the tariffs. People are cutting corners all the time in this industry to make the glass thinner. I just saw an article from PV, Photovoltaic Magazine. The glass is just exploding. It's been made so thin so that it has less weight for the panel, but it makes and the panels have been made larger, so they're more flimsy, they're more bendable, and these glasses are just exploding. I mean, really, the articles are phenomenal about what's happening. So I have, you know, I have thousands of articles, I think, but there's so much about the toxicity of nanoparticles in aqueous environments. And it's very, very dangerous if you don't understand it and you don't thoroughly inspect it and get the data. So the other thing is that the aquifer is cumulative from all the other towns within the Carver, Plymouth, Sole Source aquifer, and we're at the bottom. So it's not just what's coming from these panels. There is all of it. And we're not seeing it yet. Perhaps we do have some studies from our sewage that the PFAS has been detected. And Mr. Campina told me 2 years ago he knew there was PFAS, but he had kept the report mandated by the state upside down on his desk, so he hadn't read it because he couldn't outsource the sludge from his operation to Maine because Maine had found out that the PFAS sludge from towns like Wareham was coming and being deposited on their agricultural lands, and the food was toxic, the water was toxic. I have a map in my report to the planning board that shows all of these sites. It's like the map is covered with sites where they have put this sludge on the land, and it has been now verboten to have animals, milk from there. You know, the agriculture is shot in many of these places. So absolutely, the consequence of this sounds like it's fine. Well, it's not. It's not reasonable health, safety, and welfare situation the way they said. The way solar can be stopped is only if there's proof that it impacts health, safety, or welfare. And there is so much science and so much data that says absolutely it is doing that, and we have to be extremely, extremely careful. So yes, the places that have already been built, degraded land, and we have to be careful there too. One more thing is that with the BDOD, the business overlay, or whatever it's called, whatever we do now is a precedent for what they want to do there. And I think there's some very similar situations with a lot of bogs and some upland. And, you know, we have to be very, very prudent. So thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you for your brevity.
There are 2 people. Welcome. I have more.
I know you do.
Anyone else here want to speak in the room? In the room, no one? Yes, ma'am.
I know that this is the zoning board and we're supposed to be addressing what is put in front of us. But the reason why I'm upset is because it seems like other boards just punted it to us. And so
Well, it's not, but what's in front of us is also the site plan review, so.
Okay, well, I just don't want to be dragging out and being this, you know,
I know, we're
long-winded batch, but, I mean, there's things that we need to touch on, and I just don't want people to think that we're just turned into a bunch of activists. There's a lot of thought that's been going on in this, so, go ahead, I'm sorry to interrupt.
My name is Julie Ostagai. I've lived at 90 Maple Springs Road for about 20 years now. And I just wanted to say that it was something that over the last 20 years that we've seen a tremendous amount of change. We used to be able to look out and see the trees, and more recently, it's been truck after truck after truck moving the sand from those areas. I know this group had mentioned that it was only 16 acres, and the cranberry workers were probably going to take down those trees anyway in order to source the sand in order to use for their bogs. But they're not, they're outsourcing that sand. And that being said, you were talking about the flow of the water, and there's been a continual change of that landscape back there for many, many years. It has not been the same. So I wanted to say thank you for what you had stated about, you know, the movement of the water and how important it is to understand what's going on. You know, we do have to take a look at what's there in the future and really analyze what's there now, whether, you know, we entertain something like this. You know, have we gone out and really done a drive of the site? Have we looked with drones? I mean, I teach in the high school, and we talk, I'm a biology teacher, we talk about how the environment has changed, and we're constantly going to Google Earth and sourcing old maps and seeing what has happened. And the solar, you know, has been a hot topic for my students. You know, it's, you know, why are they putting this in, you know, these environments? And, you know, it's an interesting thing to see with the young kiddos, you know, that they're kind of taking that approach of where do you put the solar? We know it's green, we know it's wonderful, we need to have it, but where do we put it? But I just wanted to, you know, just make that known that, you know, there have been a tremendous amount of changes. And just to keep that in mind to, you know, really understand the current processing of that land before we even entertain anything new going on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, who's online, ma'am?
We have Catherine Harrison and Margaret Jean. Who do you want first?
Put one at a time. Catherine, you there?
Yes, I am here.
All right, let's hear it. Your name and address,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you. My name is Catherine Harrelson, and I'm with Community Land and Water Coalition, which is a Plymouth-based nonprofit organization. I have about a 3-minute presentation on Zoom that I'd like to give the board, if that's okay.
What's few minutes?
3.
3 minutes? Yeah, go ahead, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can I share my screen?
Sure.
Great.
Somebody in the back of the room, flip the lights off for us. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, ma'am, go ahead, Catherine.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. The Wareham Zoning Board of Appeals has the legal authority to reasonably regulate solar. The ZBA should exercise its discretion to deny the project based on the grounds that it's necessary to reasonably restrict the magnitude and placement of a project to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. It is reasonable to deny the project for the following reasons. It's reasonable to protect the Plymouth Carver Sole Source Aquifer. It's reasonable to protect a Zone 2 wellhead protection area. The project will disturb about 41.7 acres of land. It does require the removal of about 40 acres of trees in total, including vegetation and topsoil. The vegetation, trees, and topsoil protect and filter the underground Sole Source Aquifer. The project lies on top of the Plymouth Carver Sole Source Aquifer, the drinking water source for over 150,000 people in the Commonwealth. The project lies within 550 feet of a Zone 2 wellhead protection area for the town of Wareham. It is reasonable to deny the project to protect the aquifer and the drinking water for the town of Wareham. It is reasonable to deny the project to protect public health, safety, and welfare and uphold the Wareham zoning bylaws. The project has a BESS that will use lithium battery storage. The project does present a risk of fire and the release of toxic chemicals. It is reasonable to deny the project to protect the aquifer from contamination from a BES fire. If there's water used to put out the fire, contaminated runoff would infiltrate into the groundwater, which is the sole source aquifer. The BES fire could also emit toxic air pollution. It's reasonable to protect this project, to protect the public health, safety, and welfare from the air pollution that would result from a battery fire. There's also a potential for forest fire that could endanger residents and strain town resources. In regard to the Wareham zoning bylaws, the applicant seeks a variance from zoning bylaw 1532.1, the requirement to count all trees above 18 inches in diameter basal height. Without this information, the ZBA lacks the information to adequately address impacts to public health from the loss of the 40 acres of trees. This section of the bylaw provides important information to the town, which allows it to protect its residents. Trees are protected under their bylaw for their role in protecting drinking water, including increasing climate resilience, and maintaining clean air in Wareham. It is reasonable for the ZBA to deny the variance in order to protect the public's health, which are encoded in the zoning bylaws. The applicant seeks a waiver from the zoning bylaw Article 6, requiring a side yard and rear yard setback and a vegetated buffer of no less than 50 feet. The setbacks and vegetated buffers serve numerous zoning purposes, including protection of public health, by maintaining vegetation between lots and minimizing stormwater runoff from one lot to another. This variance seeks to treat lots in separate ownership as if they were held in common ownership. A landowner may not seek to evade zoning requirements applicable to each lot by attempting to combine lots into one lot. It's reasonable to deny the variance and require the landowners to observe the zoning bylaws about setbacks because the merger doctrine cannot be applied here under Massachusetts law. It's reasonable to protect the public from climate change impacts, to protect wetlands, and to protect ecology. The project has negative impacts on climate change mitigation because it will remove trees, vegetations, topsoils, and buffer zones, which provide shade, slow stormwater runoff, and yield transpiration that protect against extremes in temperature and rainfall. It is reasonable to deny the project to protect the public against climate change impacts. In regards to wetlands, the Conservation Commission has taken no action on the project. The project has 7.45 acres of work in the buffer zone to BBW and bank associated with the cranberry bogs in the isolated vegetated wetland. The applicants have not conducted an ecological evaluation or a biological survey. Section 1534 of the bylaw requires an impact statement that addresses, quote, the ecology of the area within the site and any significant off-site impacts. However, the applicants have not evaluated, studied, or assessed the ecology of the area within the site. Therefore, there's no basis for this determination. There's no basis for the applicant's conclusion that the anticipated impacts are minimal. In regards to this project overall, it would be unreasonable to approve the project for these reasons. We thank the zoning board very much for their dedication, for their hard work, and for their service, and we urge you to deny this project. Thank you.
Could I ask
Thank you.
Could I ask that lady a question?
Sure.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
That slide presentation that you just gave and your dialogue, I would assume that was not off the cuff. I'm assuming that that was probably something you read from a prepared presentation.
Yes, that's correct.
Is it possible for that to be supplied to the board in both digital and hard copy?
Yes, it is, absolutely. And I apologize for the lateness of this, but I did send this document over to Josh at approximately 5:30 this afternoon.
I'll make sure that a copy gets in the file.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Second one, person, please.
Next. Margaret?
Yes, good evening. My name is Margaret Sheehan. I am also with Community Land and Water Coalition. We are a nonprofit, as Catherine, our environmental scientist, mentioned. We have members who live, work, and recreate in Wareham, and we're speaking on behalf of them and on behalf of the interests of our organization. We urge you to deny this project. By our count, the project seeks 9 variances and waivers from the zoning bylaw. And as Catherine mentioned, it is reasonable to deny this project for several reasons. Specifically, as an attorney, I would like to address the applicant's letter regarding the claim that this is a protected use under the Zoning Enabling Act.
We lost you.
Did we lose you? Was it us or was it her?
I think it was her.
It was her? Gotta put them batteries on the charger before you.
Sorry, I apologize. Apparently I dropped out. Specifically, I'd like to address the claim that this is a protected use under the Zoning Act, the Dover Amendment, Section 3 of Chapter 48. The applicant is only telling you the story. It's true that the statute says that municipalities do not unreasonably regulate solar. They may reasonably regulate it. And that was affirmed by the Massachusetts Supreme Court in 2022 in the case of Tracer Lane 2 LLC versus the city of, and specifically speaking about Waltham, and this applies to Wareham as well, the court said, like all municipalities, Waltham maintains script.
Did we lose her again?
All right. What, take a break. Council, you wanna have some rebuttal and all that? She got, let her wait a little bit. Go ahead, sir.
I'm surprised that someone would quote Tracer Lane in opposition to solar that found that the town's bylaw prohibiting it was unlawful. It is true, and we said this earlier, you can impose reasonable regulations necessary for health, safety, and welfare. What you can't do is make a decision based on completely speculative material that's unfounded. A lot of conversations about the nanoparticles that wasn't tied to any source related to solar. There was no, all of that material was irrelevant. We've provided a lot of data showing that there's no reasonable likelihood of contamination or concerns related to the groundwater. I think that the material we've provided does stand on its own. I think it's been peer reviewed by the town's engineer, who had no open comments for us to address. And I think our materials do demonstrate why we're should be approved.
Explain to me something about Chapter 3. How's the solar protected? Is that like a cell tower? If it's needed, you have to build it. Sound like this?
Similar. So it's a general. So it's like agricultural uses or educational uses. So Section 3, the first line says, "No zoning bylaw or regulation shall regulate the use of materials or methods of construction that are addressed by the building code." So anything covered by the building code, including the fire code, such as the energy storage modules, is not subject to zoning. Zoning is not intended to regulate those. But it says with respect to solar, it's, you may regulate it, but only for as necessary for health, safety, and welfare.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You just gotta grab him. Grab that. You could stay, sir.
Do I need, yeah.
She's not that bad. She's not. She doesn't.
Ooh, I am. Annie Hayes, Farmers Lane. I have reviewed the Waltham decision, and I watched the hearings several times. And the problem with that, as was I think it was in 2022, we submitted a new solar bylaw that got turned down. And the problem with both of those was that in Tracer Lane, for example, the representative, the attorney for the town of Waltham, did not present health, safety, and welfare issues. The bulk of the conversation was about an accessory road that went through a Waltham neighborhood to make a Lexington solar project. That was the issue. And also about the percentage of panels that were already in Waltham, but they were only in a particular area, say, and excluded the whole town. Those were the issues. nothing to do with health, safety, and welfare. And the Supreme Court justices basically stated that. We did the same in Wareham. There was not the data for health, safety, and welfare. And what the Mass General Law says, whoops, maybe I'm not going to get that, but I was going to read it to you verbatim. Installations. No, I got to get the right thing. Okay. No zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit or unreasonably regulate the installation of solar energy systems or the building of structures that facilitates, that was the accessory road, or the prohibition of building of structures that facilitate collection of solar energy, except where necessary to protect the public health, safety, or welfare. It doesn't have to be all three. It can be one. And that's exactly what we've all been talking about, protecting the public. Thank you.
All right. Let me ask you a question. If they come up with a plan and they say that was a bad case to state, I mean, it doesn't look good, but, I mean, it looked good for the applicant, but that's okay. Go ahead, sir. Counselor, you wanna?
I don't disagree with the statement of Section 3. Thank you, yep.
Who else wanna speak here?
Did the attorney that kept getting knocked off have final comments that she wanted to add? I don't want anybody to feel as though they got short.
You want me to allow her to speak?
It's up to...
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
She's back. Yes, Counselor.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes did accurately characterize the case. And again, the Supreme Judicial Court said that municipalities may reasonably regulate and have the discretion, that was a key word, the discretion to restrict the magnitude, that is like the size and the number of solar projects throughout the town, and the siting, the location of solar projects. So here, that's exactly what we're talking about with the cumulative impact of all of the solar projects in Wareham, the location over the aquifer, the removal of the trees, et cetera. So it's entirely reasonable for this board to exercise its discretion to reject this project. And in fact, it would be unreasonable to approve it, given all of the information that you have received and that we are prepared to submit and have submitted in other solar cases that have led to denials in Wareham. Thank you.
Which project were denied for solar and Wareham? Which one were denied? Anybody knows? I don't think there was any denied. I mean, I know the Ferring Hill one's still going on, right?
I think they
But
got
it was-
they appealed it or something, didn't that? Isn't that what-
Right.
There were several cases that were denied and overturned.
In Wareham? In return-
140 Tohonet was appealed, and that appeal was denied to sustain the approval. I'm well aware of that one.
Did it get approved? Did the court
Yes.
granted it?
That was a Conservation Commission approval that was ultimately granted.
In litigation? There's another in litigation?
There's another in litigation right now.
All right, who wants to speak some? His mind. Troy, do you have any? Veronica?
No, I don't have anything to say.
I'll try to be brief, and I really am. When, before I was born in this country, industry grew rapidly in the New England area because we had so many rivers and tributaries and things, and the idea was build a factory close to the river and dump everything in the river. The solution to pollution was dilution. That has since been found to be an incorrect solution. When I was a little boy, I grew up on a farm. And at that time, on the farm I grew up, and on many farms in the town that I grew up in, and other towns that I visited, it was a very common practice to do what we did. We had a 55-gallon drum in the backyard, and if it was paper, we burned it. If it was colored paper and it had lead paint in it, it didn't matter, we burnt it. If it was a tin can or a glass jar, or it had food residue or something in it, it was put in a brown paper bag from the First National store, and I was charged with walking down behind the cow barn, beyond the pig pen, past the chicken house, past the hen house, down through the grove, into the woods, and at the edge of the swamp that fed a brook, I dumped the trash. That's where it went for my entire childhood. If I did that today, I'd be put in jail, because we found out that's a bad practice. But what seems like a good idea today turns out to be a bad idea in the future. We've got a lot of people, I know there's people a lot smarter than me that came up with phrases like "there's nothing to fear but fear itself." But what we have here is a town of people that are scared, some of them scared to death, of what may or may not happen. I understand it's perceived. I suggest to the developers that, as good as this information is, it appears to me that this may not be a successful application, but the information you've gathered is helpful. I would hope, again, I'm a proponent of solar, I would hope that parking lots and commercial buildings and everywhere that it's on a smaller scale possible for individuals to put up solar panels so we can learn more about them. And then if there is a problem, it'll be easier to decommission, because there'll be 100 small projects instead of one big one, which I think would aid in decommissioning. But based on the testimony I've heard, if this board feels that it's detrimental to the health, safety, or the welfare of this community, we may feel obligated to deny you. Those are my comments.
Richard, you want to close with something?
Oh, no, I've said my
Said
piece.
your piece. Would you like to continue? Would you like to close? What would you like to do?
I mean, we've already established that there's one no vote here, right? So I think we'd like to move to close. I think what we've done here is demonstrate to a great degree with the paperwork that we've submitted, the reports, whether that's the Weston and Sampson report opining on safety in terms of water quality, or the New York Interagency Fire Safety Working Group report, and other reports. We've established professional opinion on the public health, safety, and welfare of projects just like this.
Very well.
I'd like to just make one comment. There was a comment about that we're speculating what could potentially happen with this type of a project in the location that is being proposed. And I would say it's not speculation to a degree. We found that in the past, is it the prior coatings that were on the panels are a problem, PHAs, I think it is. That said, I think that gives us a reason to really look at this type of a project and to say, does it make sense to put it in that specific area and hope that there's nothing else that comes to fruition in the future? In terms of fire, that's a very real possibility, not speculation. So I disagree with that comment, that this board is not making a decision based on speculation. It's making a decision based on knowledge of a bad situation that could potentially occur in that location with this project.
All right, thank you. All right, do you wanna answer, or should we close? You guys good?
You can close the hearing.
All right.
Make a motion to close the public portion of this hearing.
I have a motion to close by Mr. Jim Akabachi, this public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Richard. All in favor, say aye. Troy? Aye. Veronica?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
And myself, aye. It's closed. Let's move on. Let's go through the variances first. So what's the wishes on the board, for the variances?
Well, I believe they need to be conditioned, right?
Why, it
I'd make a
depends
motion-
on the motion. If you wanna grant, condition, don't grant, you could say deny.
I'd move to grant a variance for the property lines, but not for the setbacks.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Akabachi to grant a variance between the properties, and I believe it does meet statutory requirement of MGL 48, Section 10. Is there any discussion on that variance? Just the in between the properties, not the setbacks and the outer side?
You want to do them in pieces?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that everybody's clear.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What, we are basically voting on variances and then,
Then the special permit for a solar,
We're going to end up taking about 3 votes.
yeah.
okay. Thank you.
All right, so that's the hearing. Jimmy, do you have the
Yeah, I know what you want.
thing?
I saw that move of the pen. I know it. I read sign language.
So,
What you want?
yeah, thanks. So on the variances, the special permit is the solar project as a whole, but we have variances too. So we have to go through it in pieces. I would like to separate the variance personally into, in between the two lots, the two owners, because they're partners, and the outer one, the setback from the neighbors. So that's what Jimmy said, wants to grant. He made a motion to grant for the variance between the lots, not the setback from the neighbors.
And the variance is granted for the solar use
Right.
under the existing lease only.
Right, so it'll be only a variance, so if that lease breaks, that variance goes, and it's only for solar. So that's Jim's motion. Nobody has to take it or vote for it, so that's the motion on the table. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Second by Troy. All in favor, say aye. That needs a supermajority. All in favor for the variance for the middle line between the properties or the partners, say aye. Mr. Troy Larson.
Aye.
Veronica Debonese.
Deny.
Jimmy Akabachi.
Aye, grant.
Richard Sample.
Deny.
Myself, Nazir Klasi, I abstain, so that's lost.
So the vote was,
3,
no, it was 2, 2, and 1, I think.
2, 2, and 1, correct. 2, 2, and 1, so that's lost. On the variances and the setback,
Just so that I got my notes right,
yeah,
who were the 2 denies?
Richard and Veronica denied. I abstained.
And then abstain,
Troy and Jimmy,
Nazzy.
yes.
and we don't have to write down who voted yes, because they're the only ones left.
The what?
Go ahead.
All right, on the variances on
Setbacks.
On the setbacks, what's the wishes with the board?
I move not to grant a variance for the setbacks. All right, better still, I make a motion to grant a variance for the setbacks.
Okay, do I have a second on that? Hearing none, it's lost, so that's dead in the water. Okay, on the special permit,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I interrupt? Can you, if you have a motion that fails, can you take the reverse motion of that?
to
So-
deny?
Well, if
All right.
either that or
Why
somebody
would you
can
say
second
that?
me and we can all say nay.
One at a time. Why would you say that?
It just makes it more clear when writing the decision.
Okay, very well. Okay, Jimmy, can you, or anybody else would like to reverse the motion? I'll do it. I would like to make a motion to deny the variance for the setback. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second by Jim, Mr. Akabachi. All in favor, say aye. Troy Larson. Aye. Veronica Debonese.
Aye.
Jim Akabachi.
Aye.
Richard Semple.
Aye.
Myself, Nazir Al-Khalasi, aye. So that's variance is lost. On the special permit to grant a solar field on the property described, how's the board feel? I need a motion on that.
Again, I'll make a motion to grant the
Special permit?
the special permit. Do we need to say that it's a special permit?
It's
or-
a special permit, it needs, now, yeah, it's a special permit on the solar.
So I make a motion to grant a special permit
And what's
for
the
a solar
finding?
field
What's your findings?
because I don't feel as though it's detrimental to the neighborhood.
Okay, do I have a second on that? I hear no second, so it's lost. Okay,
Okay.
would like, to-
Then I'll make a new motion.
no, you can't do that.
Why?
You can't contradict yourself. Somebody else gonna come
Okay,
up with the motion.
okay, go ahead.
Somebody with a motion.
Somebody has to make a motion.
I'll make a
tonight.
motion to deny the application for a special permit
I need the
for the
findings.
solar due to the detriment,
That's your reasoning.
my glasses go.
You want to be able to,
I need specific findings, please.
Due to the detriment to health, safety, and welfare that a solar project could potentially pose to the property it's proposed to be set on. The aquifer and waters that we've discussed.
Watershed in the area.
Correct.
Okay, very well. I have a motion by Ms. Debonese. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Larson. All in favor, say aye. Troy Larson. Aye. Veronica Debonese.
Aye.
Jim Akabachi.
abstain.
Richard Semple.
Aye.
And myself, Nazir Al-Khalasi, aye. So it's denied.
401.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just have to do your homework.
Good night.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other business or discussion? Mr. Madden, you here for something? No?
No.
All right.
Purely for entertainment purposes.
That being said, can we make a motion to to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn by Troy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sample. All in favor, say aye. Troy? Aye. Veronica?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
And myself, aye. We adjourn. Thank you.